Hello, my name is Mike Darnell, and I'd like to introduce you to my mother. She's 93 years of age and 11 children. As you listen to this interview, I'd like for you to reflect on this question. What would have happened to my mother, to the children, to the grandchildren, to the great-grandchildren, and the few great-greats had my dad not made the choice to come back to God and come back home to the family? This is a story of restoration. Malachi says that God will restore the hearts of the fathers to their children and the hearts of the children to their fathers, lest he come and curse the land. Enjoy the interview. In 1960, difficult times hit the Darnell family. 11 children, all between the ages of 1 and 16?
16.
And tough times with the family, tough times with the business. And business went under, and Dad left at that point. We moved out to Pike Road, to Mama Hammond's and Papa Hammond's farmhouse, which was large enough for you and all of us.
12 rooms.
12 rooms, yeah, 12 rooms. Tell us a little bit of what those days were like for you and for the family.
Well, it was bad. It was sad. It was not knowing what, but you know, my people gathered around, and the church gathered around, and people that we didn't even know. Forest Avenue Methodist Church sent me 2 tons of coal. Colonial Bread sent me 10 loaves of bread, and just things like that.
And clothes. I remember people giving us bags of clothes.
Bags of clothes. I remember Macy needed some shoes, and the YMCA gave her a pair of shoes, got her a pair of shoes. And it was just, we never went hungry. We never went without anything we needed. Of course, the wants were still there, but that was secondary.
But you're back to work yourself,
Yeah.
didn't you?
I went to work at Sears in the auditing department, and my mother helped with the little ones, 1 and 2 years old. But Melita, she was in the 4th grade, and she started cooking and taking care of those children. And so it worked out. We just had to make do with what we could get. Mm-hmm. And so Bud had incurred debt. That's the reason we lost the place. What happened, he borrowed $20,000 from this man, Mr. Dreyfus. No sign or anything. Mr. Dreyfus sold a lot of Bud. But he was just a lone man. And when he died, his nephew took over and insisted he wanted his money right then. Well, $20,000 then was close to $100,000 now. So he couldn't pay it, so he threw him into bankruptcy. So we lost the house. But funny, Mom and Pop had just moved to town to be close to us in town. Well, here we are with no house, and that we moved to their empty house out at Pike Road, 12 room, five bedrooms, 2 baths, just right for us.
It was.
And school was in walking distance, had a church in the front yard. It was just, and the children just had the best time out in the country.
I was 13 years old when Dad left. I went away to school and got things right with God myself. And I was preaching probably one of my first little revivals in West Montgomery.
Yeah.
You were playing the piano. Tell us what you remember about that night in that little church, probably about the size of this one.
Yeah, Memorial Heights. It was a small church, and I knew you were going, so I went. But it was funny, Pete showed up from Mississippi, and he was a preacher boy too. He was there, and my mother and father were there too. And the back door opened, and Bud came in. I don't know how all that happened, unless God was just orchestrating a reunion,
Well,
reconciliation.
I remember when I went up to speak, Dad walked in, and people just, there was a hush.
Yeah.
And because people knew our situation.
Yeah.
And I looked out there and saw Dad sitting in the back, and it scared me to death because my topic wasn't a good topic. It was out of James, sin, when it's finished, brings forth death.
Yes.
And I knew if I spoke on that Dad may just
Well,
walk right out the back door.
Well, I remember the song I sang, One of God's Children is Coming Home. You remember that song?
I've wandered far away from God. Now I'm coming home.
Yeah.
The fields of sin too long I've trod.
Now I'm coming home. So, and Bud came forward and y'all grabbed him and took him to the back.
And, you know, he came home that night. He came home that night, and he was working in Florida as far as I can remember.
Tampa.
So he went back, but he made a choice that night
Yeah.
to come home, and everybody was excited. We started singing around the piano again. And a verse of scripture that's one of my favorite verses concerning this type of thing is the last verse in Malachi. Says, and he will restore the hearts of the fathers to their children, and the hearts of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite the land with a curse. And I can remember talking to Daddy through those 7 years. It tore him up to be away.
Yeah.
But that night he came back and didn't leave again. And the thing that I think about is, what would have happened had he not come home? Now, how many grandchildren do you have?
I have 39 grandchildren,
39 grandchildren.
66 great-grandchildren, and 1 great-great. He would have missed all of that.
He would have missed all of that, and the legacy would not have been the same.
And they were his joy.
And they were.
Yeah.
And the grandchildren and the great-grandchildren, they remember Dad and as a positive role model.
Yes.
Because he finished strong,
Right.
even though he detoured along the way, he finished strong.
Well, that's what counts.
That's what counts.
The finish line. And the children just loved him.
They did.
All children loved Bud.
They did. They did.
He was a unique character.
A unique. Mom, is there anything else that you would say to men who struggle from your perspective about home, about legacy?
Don't give up. Don't give up, because God is testing you. The devil is tempting you, but God allows that to test you. And the bottom line is to obey and finish strong. Keep the faith. Keep the faith.